Happy New Year, and I know that sounds a little odd, but this is the Wealth Transfer. We are back, we are live, and we are going to give you data that matters. Stay tuned. All right. Now, I know what a lot of you have been thinking. Why are we doing reruns? What was taking place? But I do want you to know that we are back. It is 2018, and we are ready to go with data. I have to say I did take a little hiatus. I spent a lot of time with my family during the Christmas holidays and spent a lot of time with God. I'm like, God, what is going on here where the data says one thing, but then the media, which we all know the media is kind of irrelevant in truth, but the real data the media was trying to present is saying another. And I'm like, okay, God, am I wrong? Is something changing here? And yes, there are things coming back to America that are changing. The tax cuts were an enormous benefit to America in many ways, especially with repatriating the literally hundreds and hundreds of billions from corporations overseas, bringing that money here to America. I'm not so certain that's going to translate into actual cash circulation throughout the economy. Yes, there are bonuses being given. Yes, there are people getting jobs, but the data is still saying something very different. And so I was kind of confused. I was thinking, okay, I'm feeling pretty good. America is becoming great. Well, let's just say the idea of making America great again, it's a great idea. I do think the judgeships that are being put in place are phenomenal, especially for the Christian kingdom. I believe that a lot of the other policies that are put in place here with trade, renegotiating our position are absolutely exceptional. But one problem, the rest of the world doesn't really care. Now, we may be transforming America to some degree, but folks, you're watching it just as much as I. I am just shocked at the level of corruption, lies at the heels of our deep state. I really am. I'm just amazed. I'm amazed at the character. I'm amazed at the honor and integrity that is gone. And what I finally realized, which I always seem to know, in my heart anyway, that politics is always number one. Now, we grew up thinking the FBI and a lot of these agencies would be partial, or they were not supposed to be political, let's just say. And we're finding out that just wasn't the case. I really believe that a lot of those in charge at the higher levels of our deep state probably just assumed Hillary was going to be president, and so they didn't think that their crimes and their corrupt behavior would have been discovered. Unfortunately, that didn't happen, and that's why we have the panic. I still personally believe, I know a lot of them myself, that many in our CIA, in our FBI, in our Department of Justice, and so on, are absolute exceptional Americans. Not just human beings of character and honor and integrity, but they are true Americans to the Constitution. But folks, you and I all know that hierarchy plays the part here, and let's just say a good friend of mine once told me that there's these hats. In the lower rungs, you had all the people, but the problem is if the top was corrupt, they didn't have any choice down below. And I think we're starting to see that come to light. I personally am just astonished at the memos and what our FBI was doing. I just think it is absolutely corrupt at high levels all the way through the DNC. But, that's politics. But I merely bring that up because if we as a nation are being so torn apart, number one, from the left into the right perspective of our politics, the libertarian conservatives to the socialist anarchist revolutionaries on the left, that's one thing. But then we're also being torn apart in our honor, our character, our integrity, and I hate to say even our global presentation of admiration, of truth. It looks like to me what we see going on is, I don't know, is it repairable? Only if people go to jail, only if this just gets shut down at high levels, if we really, really reorganize and commit to integrity. Otherwise, folks, this is just one example of what we would call the building of an empire. When we build empires, and empires all through history, I did a study on it, I personally want to do a piece on it, but there's like 7 stages of an empire. When they come about, they spend money, they do infrastructure, they go to war, of course, they build military, and we are in stage 6 of the 7 stages of an empire. We have done everything we can to really destroy our currency. We've done everything we can to really minimize our financial strength globally because we're basically broke, leveraged to the till. We're the most debted nation in the history of the world, in all of history. So the problem is we have to kind of take a look at ourselves as America and say, you know, are we going to stop the insanity or are we going to just continue politic? I personally think politics probably just going to continue. I think there's exceptional political wars taking place right now in our nation, a major fight for the soul of America. People like Laura Ingraham and Sean Hannity and them, they're just doing a phenomenal job presenting a case. But the problem is, folks, the world isn't stopping. So as we have these dynamics playing out in our nation, it does remind me that that is very typical behavior of a stage 6 going to stage 7 of the collapse of an empire. Now, I'm not advocating that America is going to collapse. I'm just merely saying we're in that stage where America is, let's just say, having some serious problems globally and internally, let alone our own political. In the middle of that, stage 7 of the 7 stages of an empire is the actual collapse of a currency, or it would be the lack of confidence to the currency. I won't say that that's right now. I still think American dollar still has a place, but folks, we've been doing it here on the wealth transfer all last year, showing how the world is setting up to take the dollar down. That's what was going on in the Middle East. I really believe that's why in the last 8 years, we've been trying to do these false flags after false flags in Syria and Ukraine. Russia definitely has been undermining our actual petrodollar, which I'm going to do this before we have to take a break. But remember, the petrodollar isn't just about oil and profits and then those profits being invested into U.S. treasuries. It's actually about the fact that every country in the nation had to have American dollars to buy the oil, which then gave us, of course, the unlimited printing of bonds, the ability to spend anything we wanted to, because the world needed our currency to buy crude oil. That's been the direct assault on our dollar in the Middle East. That's why all these wars have been taking place, the pipelines, the Zambuco pipeline. I mean, there's so much that we've gone over. But that is the issue today. Is the American dollar going to survive as a reserve currency? And I'm here to say the challenges are extraordinarily high. We've already seen numerous nations form currency and financial agreements in their own currency, and I've tweeted about it a lot, so I'd say if you have not, go to Twitter, if you're in Twitter, and go to Terry Saka AAMS. I'm there. I like to tweet out relevant information, story headlines that's evolving that I believe will impact our financial decisions. Not so much sometimes in the short run, but definitely in the long run. And that's one thing I realized as I was kind of praying with God is, Lord, what are we doing here? And he says, you are preparing my people for what is to come. You keep doing the information. Those will come that hear, and I'll take care of the rest. I'm like, okay, it's yours. So before I dig into this, because you're going to find it interesting what China's up to, what their economy is doing, and how it relates to us. But before I do, let me take a quick break.
Terrorism terrorism, a volatile stock market, rising food costs, natural disasters, every day our economy is at risk, but your assets should not be. Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked so hard to gain. Whether you have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, our accredited asset management specialists are here to support you. Call now and we'll send you urgent information regarding changes to the dollar and challenges to our economy that you need to be prepared for. Learn how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA. We can even arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or send it directly to your home. Do not delay. Call 888-747-3309 or register online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com today. Invest in precious metals and create security in your future today. Call now.
Welcome back. Okay, so I'm going to get back into it, but again, I do want to say welcome back to all of our audience, all of those people who have contacted us saying, hey, what's going on? Most people did understand. They knew what we were up to, and definitely the deep perspective and the deep prayer that we were doing and what was really taking place. I'm very comfortable that what is taking place, a lot of it seems legitimate. And it does seem that things are better. And listen, for all of us, over the last 8 years, this has been such a big moment because an antichrist didn't take over. We would have been done if that socialist antichrist would have gotten into the White House. So it's extremely important that we've been given this reprieve, let's just say, a little time. I had a wonderful client say to me one time, the head of the snake was cut off. But the problem is, in her dream, the head grew back, which I don't doubt. I think all of us know that the world is chiming for a one world global order. That would be a socialist order, not capitalist. So it is important that we in the kingdom understand what's really going on out there. And I'm just going to march forward. I do believe for those that have made money in the stock market, think about it this way. All the hype since the election time, all of it, had to do with the stock market and the president. Now, with that being said, if the stock market and the president are talking about the finances to such degree that everything is great, of course the psychology starts to shift. And in this particular case, we have found the markets really react. There was a lot of cash flowing around. Remember, the Fed had printed trillions and trillions in loans, trillions and trillions of swap lines, and trillions upon trillions, over 10 trillion of loans out to foreigners. I know we talked about this before, but remember, we bailed out the world in 2008. And then, of course, the ECB, which is the European Central Bank, they jumped aboard as well, printing money into Bolivians, same with the Japanese, same with the Chinese, same with everybody. But it doesn't change the data. Well, it could have, or let's just say should have, but it didn't. And so we want to keep going. And I feel very comfortable now. I'm glad everyone made money if they did in the markets. But think about all the euphoria, all of it that has happened since Donald Trump has been president is only translated to about 45% gain in the Dow. Now that's good. And if many people have come back since 2008 and now have profit, I'm very happy for that. But now is the time to take heed to diversification and diversification into tangible assets, because I'm going to get into over the weeks here showing you how this data is a lot different than what they're presenting. And you need to be prepared. You should be maybe half and half, but I would not be all in those markets. They're titleists and they can crash overnight. You need tangible asset protection, because when this flips, which you're going to see data continually here to show you, it can happen at any moment. When it does, you're going to wish you had tangible asset protection. It's kind of like a policy that offsets, let's just say. because as that market starts crashing, silver prices will skyrocket, and silver to the high on the next cycle will be a 200% gain. It'll dwarf the Dow gain all last year that all this hype was about by 300%. So as much as people are excited about the stock market, I just like, to me, I would be accumulating more silver because eventually you're going to find out why. And it's just an easier peace of mind. And for those going into the Bitcoin, I think you really might want to rethink that. Bitcoin, I understand, but the professionals are now controlling the trade. It's gone from zero up to what, 19,000? And now it's teetering at 10,000. It's lost half of its value literally within weeks. So what, you're going to buy Bitcoin now at 10, 11,000, and then what, it drops to 6 overnight? We're talking volatile swings. And remember, Christians, I'm stunned at the Christians that are calling about it, but Christians, Bitcoin is fake. It's backed up by nothing. It's a digital, made-up mathematical formula. And it's truly, I believe with my heart, an NSA plot or some deep state plot to create the concept and euphoria to get you excited in this digital world. Because then they're going to take us cashless, steal all of our freedom, and put us on a digital currency, which we all know will lead to a chip. So just be very cautious. This is the sucker trap, and I'm staying way away from it. Although it can be tempting, remember, so is some of the most beautiful flowers and most beautiful fruit, and yet they'll kill you. So I want you to know, as you noticed when I had this, it's a Chinese America, but I want you to take a look at this picture. This is actually President Xi with Donald Trump. And I found the picture interesting because the president of China had just now won re-election and sealed the deal that he will be forever president now of a communist party. So everything is going to change. China over the last year or so has been, let's just say, waiting until the election was over. But look at the picture. Look at the look on his face when Donald Trump's got his hand out to shake. It's that look like, he just knows. He's got that grin. He's got that look. He's getting ready to go head to head, and he knows it. I thought it was an exceptional photograph. That could just be a snapshot in time, I understand, but it was very telling to me. You see, now that President Xi is the president of China, he can do what he wants. He has finally sealed the deal, cleared the Congress he has, and he controls the Communist Party. So much so that they're even teaching in school, singing songs to him. I mean, it's typical communist type of tyranny, but watch out, which means, I say watch out, they're ready to take the seeds they've been planting. Financial seeds, trade, military, and they're doing it through the destruction of the dollar superiority and dominance and the petrodollar. So watch out. Now, how do we see this playing down? What was really going behind the scenes? Now that the Chinese are successfully in place in their communist state, what's been the motivator? What is the, let's just say, the setup to what's coming? And I want you to see it financially. Look at this. This is known as a Shiller cyclical. It's getting very frothy. If you notice on this chart, you see Black Tuesday, which is the Great Depression. And then you see the Black Monday, of course, in the middle there in the 60s. The dot-com bubble burst, 2008 panic. Ladies and gentlemen, on the Robert Shiller irrational exuberance scale, we are above the 2008 panic. That is something to say. There's something to this. It's too much. So before I get into some of the core data, I'm going to go ahead and take a quick break.
Terrorism dynamism, a volatile stock market, rising food costs, natural disasters, every day our economy is at risk, but your assets should not be. Cornerstone Asset Metals is here to help you protect and preserve what you have worked so hard to gain. Whether you have IRAs to protect, 401ks to preserve, or cash in the bank, our accredited asset management specialists are here to support you. Call now and we'll send you urgent information regarding changes to the dollar and challenges to our economy that you need to be prepared for. Learn how easy it is to roll over your current IRA or 401k into a physical precious metals IRA. We can even arrange to have your precious metals stored in a private vault or send it directly to your home. Do not delay. Call 888-747-3309 or register online at cornerstoneassetmetals.com today. Invest in precious metals and create security in your future today. Call now.
Okay, welcome back. So what I wanted to do was outline, as I say, kind of a setup. They had to lay low. Number one, the Chinese had to put themselves in place with the IMF. They did currency hub exchanges in Luxembourg and London. They set themselves up. Then they went on a, let's just say, kind of they took an approach of slowly building relationships that undermined the United States. And I know Cornerstone had sent out a package, it goes back to 2012, where there were 11 nails in the coffin for the dollar, where the Chinese were going around and creating relationships with nations, and instead of using the dollar as the intermediary currency, they did deals in their own currencies. So much so that there are nations now that used to peg to the dollar that no longer do, and they now peg to the yuan. Even so much as trading oil for yuan, which is a direct, absolute violation of our petrodollar deal we had with Saudi Arabia. But that's a whole nother conversation, folks, because we did a lot of it, but Saudi Arabia has changed too, if you haven't noticed what was going on there. So China's had to set up the pace and the relationships way ahead of time before they can actually pull the rug out of the dollar. It's slow and systematic, but I believe it's picking up. Now, many professionals believe it's something that could be 15, 20 years down the road. I happen to think it may be sooner. I don't know if it's going to lead to war. Something isn't right in the universe. You can smell it. This financial stuff is smoke and mirrors, and yet people are chasing it like puppies. You better be cautious to that. But notice China being a 1.23 billion population economy, the middle class now becoming a consumption economy. China really has been driving the financials and the economy since 2008. Europe and the United States had been, really, we all know, we don't have to say that. But China had been doing the major portion of it and developing where the resources and the finances came in. But China is experiencing a lot of problems. And the data I'm getting ready to show you is not, it's core data to China, but it does not count the shadow banking, which is financing below the official banking. And that is an utter mess. But we won't touch that right now. But I do want to show you, because if China's economy slows down to a point of recession halt, the rest of the world is definitely doing it as well. I think there's some connection with the bonds. I do think there's indicators that are raging out there telling us they're doing everything they can in the central bank world, but there's only so much you can do when you're putting a lot of gas on a fire to start an economy. Once it gets raging, you ever hear the Tower of Inferno? But look at this one. This is a Chinese fixed asset investment chart. The green line is the total, or the private sector of it. Let's just go with the light green. And then the red one is the state-owned enterprise. Notice in the middle, in 2015, this is when we had major money printing and stimulus globally. And if you notice the red line in the middle shooting straight up in 2015 there, up 25%. That was known as a big stimulus starting off for 2016. That's why the 2016 year looked so prosperous. But if you notice the red line, how after it peaked, it slowly just collapsed to the right. Well, while the government, communist-owned operations were peaking with stimulus, you notice the private sector in China never changed. As a matter of fact, at the same time stimulus was done, the private sector continued to hurt. It took a little while, but then finally the government money started creeping down to the private money as you see this start to rise up. But still, that was only mid-2016. And since then, private business in China has been steadily decreasing, as well as the government-owned businesses increasing steadily lower as well, meaning the big reflation trade didn't work. So they printed trillions into stimulus. We saw it even in America and Europe, but yet the data shows it's going back, not counting bankruptcies and such in America. So let's take another look at one more chart here. I think that'll be very, very, very telling. This is a year-over-year percentage change on the state sector, the communist sector owned government businesses, and the private sector, green and red. Now, again, you see in 2015 in the middle, you see the big bump. That's the printing of money. That's the reflation. That's what we did here, known as QE. And as you can see, the green and the red sectors coming into 2018 have collapsed to below zero. Folks, you can't make this stuff up. I mean, this is good information. Goodbye reflation. All of the work of printing money has completely evaporated. And America and Europe and all these other regions have the same issue in data, folks. But in China specifically, this is huge because of all the printing in trillions, and yet they're negative right now. So as much as you think you're hearing all the positive financial booms going, be cautious because the real data says otherwise, and I don't want to see you get caught. We don't have a whole lot of time here, but I do want to remind you that we are back now. Please visit us on our website. Go to our Facebook page. Go to Cornerstone's Facebook page. There's going to be great information there. Go to the Twitter. I will personally be putting out great headlines of relevancy to finances on Twitter. And I think that would be a really substantial benefit to you over mainstream media. I am really keeping politics out, I promise. I know I started out that way, but I was merely trying to just illustrate how America is experiencing these issues and how the globe is going to react to this. But I'm not interested in the politics. You know, I care about the kingdom's protection, and I care about we the people. So I'm glad to be back. Thank you for being patient. And until next week, we'll start digging in heavy right into the Chinese and the U.S. data. So you stay blessed.